You're so smart. You are a good boy. You're amazing. Do all of these sound familiar? Have you used these phrases at some point? We all love praising people, right? But what if the words we think are building somebody up are actually building a box they're scared to step out of? In today's episode, we're exploring how praise, when tied to identity rather than effort, can actually limit growth, create a fear of failure, and damage resilience. Welcome to the Jessica Effect. If you are caring for someone else, whether paid or unpaid, and no matter how many hours you do it, did you realise that you may be missing out on thousands of pounds of discounts for things that you may use every day? The Able to Care podcast is proud to be sponsored by the UK's #1 carers card. Started by two best friends who recognise that carers deserve better and are 100% committed to helping to change the lives of all carers and bringing them together as a strong community. Carers Card UK provides support, recognition and rewards. It offers reassurance by providing an ID card that helps access emergency information when needed, while also unlocking discounts, a wellbeing hub, a carers circle tool and a community through their app. All of this for less than the price of a box of chocolates a year. There are discounts on gym membership, days out, electrical goods, clothing and even glasses. Let others know you care while taking a little care of yourself with an ID card you can be proud of. Visit carerscarduk.co.uk/promo code/able to care today to order yours. Welcome back to the Able to Care podcast. I'm your host, Andy Baker, and today we're diving into a topic that many of us in care education and parenting don't even realise we're getting wrong: praise. Now, praise is one of the things we've often said, you're so clever, you're such a good girl, you're amazing at that. We're coming from a completely good place, and most of us have never been taught how to praise properly. And this is one of the challenges, that you might be praising in a way that you think is helping, but it actually could be hindering. So let me introduce you to Jessica. In my book, Targeting the Positive, Jessica is a bright, capable young girl, constantly praised for being clever. At school, she got top marks and everyone told her how smart she was. But the moment something got difficult, she panicked. She refused to try. Why? Because if she failed, she wouldn't just lose a mark, she'd lose the identity she'd been praised for. Her self-worth was becoming tied to being the smart one. Now, this is what psychologist Carol Dweck describes in a research on growth versus fixed mindset. Her studies found that when children are praised for traits like "you're so smart," they are more likely to avoid challenges, give up more easily, and see effort as a sign of failure. If I had to work for it, well, then I shouldn't have to work for it because I should just be smart. In contrast, children praised for the process, "you work so hard on that, well done for concentrating for so long," tend to be more resilient, motivated, and willing to take risks. So why does this happen? Praise can become a label, and label become identity, and identities are fragile. So let me give some examples. Let's say a child is being praised for being kind. Every day they suddenly lash out. Instead of being able to explore the reason, they may become ashamed of their actions because they weren't the kind one today. Because rather than recognizing that their behavior is kind, they've just associated that just they are kind, which either means they struggle to accept responsibility because if I'm kind, everything I do is kind, which separates their behavior from themselves. Or it may be a case of they can't cope with losing that sense of identity. Let's get another example. A young adult who has always been told that they're independent suddenly struggles with a new task. You're so independent, but they struggle with something. Instead of feeling they can ask for help, they retreat. They give up on it. Their identity doesn't leave room for needing support. And again, these come from scripts that you wouldn't think that's necessarily a bad thing. Describing somebody as independent, you're so independent. But actually, wait a minute, is that a good thing? Or does that mean that they may struggle to be able to feel safe enough, or that it's appropriate to ask for help? Maybe they feel weak if they need any help. They failed if they need any help. So let's say we've got an individual who's referred to as so strong or resilient, and they start showing signs of emotional distress. But they don't feel safe expressing it because they've learned that being the strong one is part of their value. I know I'm guilty of this myself, and I know that I've, made mistakes in the way that I've praised others, but also, I'm aware of some of the concepts I have about myself that I struggle to let go to. So somebody being like hardworking is one that I struggle with. That hardworking was always that kind of, you should be hardworking, hardworking is good. But the only danger with that label is that then it's a case I'm only valued if I'm working hard, which you could say is a positive. But what if that takes me to a state of burnout and I'm struggling and I can't ask anybody for help because of how hard I have to work? So being mindful of that, or being careful of the way that we then obviously offer these identity labels. So what do we do instead? So Carol Dweck talks about this in her work, and many people out there will understand the concept of like kind of growth mindset and fixed mindset, but most people don't associate with the way that we praise, the way that we offer validation to other people actually is really connected to this. So let's shift from praising who a person is, or even the outcome of how they did, to recognizing the process itself. We acknowledge the effort, not the outcome. Instead of going, you're a star, try, I saw how focused you were during that. Recognize emotions without judging them as well. Instead of, don't be silly, you're fine. Try, that looked really hard, and I'm glad you're telling me. Think about the connections that many of us have as far as kind of male mental health, for instance, that, the number of times, pull yourself together, don't be silly, grow up. These kind of labels, judgments, kind of criticisms, same as a praise, you can do it, you can handle it. Maybe a case of that actually leads to a disconnect. It means that then I can't accept that sometimes I might struggle, or sometimes things might be too difficult for me to be able to do on my own. Make sure so feedback is always better than praise anyway. Give feedback that builds resilience. Okay? It's great to see you keeping going, even when it's tricky, as an example. You didn't give up. That tells me a lot about you. I can see that you're finding it difficult, but you're doing so well to overcome and keep trying. These are all kind of possibilities that show that growth mindset concept, that I'm going to keep going, or the benefit, the thing that we want is the process. I can build this out as well. So when we're using kind of praise, for instance, if you say, well done for getting 10 out of 10, you also got to think about, well done for being so smart, for a child who gets 10 out of 10 in a quiz. We've also got to bear in mind of the child that didn't get 10 out of 10, we've kind of indirectly told them that maybe they weren't good enough, or they didn't do well enough. If we are using praise as well, use specific praise. You include in your peer in that game without being asked. That shows real thoughtfulness. I really enjoyed when you came over and you helped me with that earlier. I thought that was lovely. These are the things we can be a bit more specific with, the actual actions and things like that as they occurred. What we're trying to do is separate the person from their behavior. That was a kind thing to do versus you're always so kind. So we're letting an individual know, or you're such a good boy, is what you did there was really good. I liked what you just did there. I love the way you shared your stuff, for instance. So this isn't about never praising people, by the way. So those of you listening out there, and I know many people might sort of then go, oh, this is too hard anyway. We've been told that we need to praise, but now we're praising wrong. Well, it's just understanding that praise is a bit more complicated than we give it credit for. It's easy to just throw out praise willy-nilly, but it's much harder to kind of make it specific and meaningful. So it's making sure that our praise empowers rather than confines. Carol Dweck's work, particularly her seminal study in 1998 with Claudia Muella, I'll say her name right hopefully, showed that children praised for intelligence were far more likely to choose either easier tasks, avoid effort, and also showed decreased performance after setbacks as well. In neuropsychology, this links to how the dopamine system responds to rewards and threat. If praised, it's linked to a fixed identity. The brain begins to fear the loss of that status. We praise with good intentions, but may condition fear around mistakes. When we shift how we praise, we change how people view themselves. We give them permission to try, fail, and grow. We teach and we teach that their value isn't about being perfect. It's about being present and persistent. I know so many of us go, it's not about the winning and losing, it's about the taking part. But then how do we offer appropriate praise that still promotes competition and effort, but in a way that allows people to have a growth mindset rather than a fixed mindset? There is so much around praise that most people don't realize. And unfortunately, we're in a society that so many people are seeking external validation for what they do and trying to make sure that particularly children are learning to self-validate and recognize that it's a behavior is separate from the person, that they're not specifically valued purely for what they achieve and what they come out with, but for how they treat others and how they manage situations and how they overcome difficulties is far more valuable to allow us to be more resilient as we become older. But we can also utilize this same principles and this same premise when working with adults or anybody really. I was teaching a course on moving and handling people. And I remember it was one of the carers doing some scenario work. And she offered the praise, good girl, or to an elderly lady or a person who was acting as an elderly lady for just helping, like being turned in bed. Now, the carer had done the majority of the work of turning her and we just gone, good girl, when she rolled. And it's just that, it just felt uncomfortable. Telling an 80-year-old woman, well done or good girl for rolling, it was a case of a bit like, she could probably sit up and beg as well and sit and do other things. This is not how you speak to an 80-year-old woman who potentially used to run a company or have 5 children and run a household and used to achieve incredible things. And now she's being congratulated for being able to roll over. Sometimes appreciation, thank you, is also far better than praise. But praise is a huge topic. It's somewhere that I'm still learning how to improve my strategy on praise. But if you found this interesting and you'd like to find out more, then keep listening, share, subscribe, or pass this on to others as far as what they can learn about improving their praising strategies. Please read the work of Carol Dweck about growth mindset as well, because I think it's something everybody should utilize to improve the outcomes for themselves as well as their children. Let's move from pressure to process and from performance to progress. See you next time.